Welcome to another installment of Daily Alchemy with Solarah. Today is Thursday, February the 22nd, and we are smack in the middle of the 222 portal. I hope you guys are doing extra wonderfully today. The title for today's article is "The Body Keeps Record of Your Traumas and Will Replay It for You When It's Time to See and Heal. A Supernova Reunion." Abuse and neglect contribute to more trauma-related lifestyle illnesses than most of us are aware. From the time I began to notice the distinct connection to my diet and mental and emotional health, I have pursued this path relentlessly, both personally and professionally. I hold professional qualifications in nutritional therapy, functional nutrition for mental health and neurology, integrative nutrition for health coaching, medical herbalism, and I am also a naturopathic chef. Like many of us who have been victimized by abuse and the many correlating trauma cycles it induces, I was groomed to always seek fault in self, which opened me up to forever searching for ways to get better. One of the hallmarks of a good abuser is that they will never take personal responsibility for those they harm and the broken hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits they amass in the avoidance of their own shadow selves. Like most survivors, my trauma is layered and complex. I grew up in a town and country that is rife with covert racists who hid their disdain for my family's presence behind social mores while they took out their angst on me and through our neighborhood schooling system and community enterprises. As such, I was bullied in this community I grew up in by children and adults alike. And this lay the foundation for how I began to see myself through this distorted mirroring effect. Being the only blackies in the village meant that my whole childhood revolved around my family, proving our worthiness of living in that neighborhood and community. Both my parents were more obsessed with what others saw and thought of us than they were about my internal world, or the wounding that their obsession cost me. I am neurodivergent and on the spectrum, but in the whitewashed reality I lived in that consumed my parents, I was cast off as being lazy and dumb. It is no secret that girls are less likely to be diagnosed with neurodivergence than boys. There is a clear gender bias in diagnosis that has been widely exposed in the past few years. Now add to that gender bias another barrier to diagnosis: race. That's where you would find me in 1980s England, all the way in the back of the bus, being dutifully ignored, shunned, overlooked, and treated as if I was less human than my white counterparts. As a child, I was deeply introverted, more happy in my own imagination and worlds I created in which I felt safe than I was around other people. When I look back now, I realize that my dislike of being around people was a protective mechanism because the beings who frequented my childhood reality were in no way safe for me by any stretch of imagination. I remember going out and running errands with my mother and feeling like a performance puppet because of the pressure she put on me to speak to people and appear in ways that made her look more presentable and boosted her reputation as a mother. I would fumble over my words and can still be very shy when first meeting some people. After these encounters, I would receive a tongue lashing on how whenever I go out with her and people talk to me, I stand there acting like a dummy. Her concern was never about my comfort in the situation, but about appeasing strangers because of what impression of her that might leave. In this way, I soon came to learn that a stranger's opinion held more value in her heart than my ability to feel safe. At the age of 8, the headmistress of my then primary school called my mother in and told her that I would never amount to anything, she was wasting her time on me, and that there is no way any university would ever accept me, so she may as well write off any hopes of that. My mother, of course, used this conversation to motivate me out of my laziness and stupidity. No guesses for whether that method worked to improve my scholastic performance or not. 12 years later, I was accepted into Oxford University's MFA in creative writing without a bachelor's degree. I was chosen based upon the strength of my writing, recommendations from the residencies I had participated in up until that point, and following an interview with the head of the department. I wanted to mail my acceptance letter to Moya Ann Rice-Jones. That was the actual, literal name of my primary school headmistress, but I got caught up celebrating my victory instead. I didn't attend Oxford, by the way. I also got accepted to Columbia and packed my bags to relocate to Manhattan a few months later. However, 8-year-old me was not aware that such things were possible because she had been doomed to failure before even putting a foot out the gate. It was around this time that I developed a very weird food allergy. I had always adored apples. Red Delicious were my absolute favorite. One Friday night, I bit into one of these apples and became so violently sick that I couldn't even catch my breath while vomiting. This resulted in ruptured capillaries on my face that stayed red for over 2 days. To this day, I can only eat apples if they're peeled, cooked, or juiced with lemon. Why am I telling you all of this, and what is the correlation? I am telling you because abuse and neglect contribute to more trauma-related lifestyle illnesses than most of us are aware. My guides have been diligently helping me to clear the traumas that have contributed to and exacerbated my many digestive issues that have piled up over the years. What doctors brazenly dismiss as IBS or autoimmune flares that have yet to fully mature into what is necessary to categorize it under a disease umbrella and title is actually the scarring, wounding, and record of unprocessed traumas still cycling through my body. It's amazing how we have these bodies and are taught nothing about them. And it's equally amazing how everything in the systems of this world has been designed to keep us stressed and sick. How much do we miss in what is actually going on with us and those we love because our attention has been misdirected to follies that the Matrix has told us are valuable? How much do we miss rushing to get buses and trains to places we hate going to? How much do we miss dedicating our time to work and school deadlines that we force ourselves to do out of duty? How much do we miss living inorganically and completely out of alignment with what promotes our own health and the health of those we love? How much do we miss because we lack the tools, knowledge, and resources necessary to fully pursue alternative methods of prevention and reversal that are purposely not covered by our medical insurance and also purposefully dismissed as not being proper health care? How much do we miss? As a neurodivergent woman of the rainbow race, with very prominent Virgo and Scorpio energy, I pay close attention to cycles. I am also a keen observer of cause and effect when it comes to said cycles. One thing I've noticed is that everything natural is designed to replenish itself naturally. This means that the body itself is self-replenishing when given the right treatment and environment in which to be so. This would also mean that aging is a result of the oxidative stress that is purely an effect and consequence for mistreatment of our bodies and therefore our natural self-replenishing abilities. And this has all been made possible because we have lived in a world that has taught us it's okay to abuse ourselves and the vessels we have been loaned as a trade-off for success or survival, as it would turn out for most of us. This past weekend, I wrote about the Saturnian ring magic of the Matrix and how it is presently being erased and cleared through what was later shown to me as an extraction vortex that is opening through this Virgo full moon window. It seems that this vortex is also assisting in clearing us of these habits and traditions that promoted our own untimely death and decay. Virgo is the sign of the zodiac over our immunity and health, and she has been speaking loudly to me on the importance of reclaiming our own sense of authority and autonomy over our own bodies again. This Saturnian ring magic had us stuck in loops that were designed to bring decay into our realities as we circled through. The best way I can describe this is by using water as an analogy. You and I are free-flowing springs designed to travel and meet other bodies of water, branch off, and then become new expressions of ourselves. The Matrix time loop simulation had us stuck, like we were water in a jar that can no longer flow and produce multiple forms of life. It can only die and become poisonous to itself. And this is what sickness is, and its true design in the false Matrix. We were not taught how to properly care for ourselves because we have been energetically enslaved and siphoned for other nefarious purposes. For as long as we were lost in this ignorance and participating in the behaviors and routines that contributed to our own abuse and decay, we were consenting to staying in the jar. We were consenting to slowly being poisoned by the decay of our own organs because we didn't know we were stuck in a fucking jar. The many traumas we ensue not only seals the jar tighter, but also speeds up the multiplication of toxins inside it and makes us even less aware that we are actually not sick or at total fault for our condition because we're stuck in a fucking jar. The Bible says that the wages of sin is death. And while I am no longer a Christian or a follower of any religion, I still glean the value in all things, including Scripture. To sin simply means to come out of divine alignment or agreement with Source about who you actually are. As we fall out of this alignment, we lose our wisdom on how to be divine because we continually choose a lie about ourselves over the truth of who we actually are. This leads to death because in our ignorance, we no longer know how to care for our own immortality and energy bodies on this earth plane. Disease is not and has never been the will of God. It is simply a consequence of trauma, abuse, self-neglect, and ignorance of who we are. And through this ascension, we have all been gifted precious opportunities to remember who we are once more and do our best to come back into rightful alignment. This weekend's full moon is opening doors and windows so wide that we will be able to recuperate so much of what we have been taught is impossible, for as long as we have remembered who we actually are. Not who and what the Matrix made us out to be in its fake drama and simulation, but who we actually are, divinely and organically. I have been having chats with my liver and gallbladder since the new moon in Aquarius. They have been speaking to me on stories from childhood that slowed them down because of all the pain I wasn't allowed to ever express. All the righteous anger that was turned back on me and locked inside because I was abused and shamed out of the fullness of my own emotional expression. They have been showing me the records of when and how they were warning me of how I was harming them, but I couldn't hear their cries as I had been groomed to ignore them and my own internal compass and wisdom. They had been giving me hope that I might just eat an apple again without being violently sick. And I have been making amends. and taking time and care to make up for lost time where I was so stuck in survival mode that I didn't even realize how much strain I allowed for my own precious body to broker on my behalf. I have been listening, responding, and researching, going back to the basics about who I am and how I function, because that wisdom was always in me before I was taught and bullied into forgetting. And now we are all being allotted an opportunity to do this for ourselves, to delve deeper into what we need individually on our next steps to healing the chasms between spirit, mind, soul, and body. The Matrix's ultimate design was to keep us at war with self, fragmented, ignorant, and separated from our true power, innate wisdom, and divinity. Our divorce from self always ensures that disharmony and chaos will also then abound outside of self too. It is time for a supernova reunion like no other, and it is starting first, like all things do, from within. Ashe. For access to all of my articles and installments in full, please make sure to check me out on Substack at dailyalchemy.substack.com. For all of you who choose to become monthly or annual patrons, you will have continual access to these articles as they are published, as well as to the full archive of all my articles, decrees, as well as my works of nonfiction and poetry. Every month, my patrons also get the opportunity to connect with me in a group Q&A via video link. So if you feel that that would be helpful on your healing and ascension journey, please make sure to check me out on dailyalchemy.substack.com. Wishing you guys all a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day.